The 5053 Pro Driver from Invicta is actually one of the first watches I added to my collection. In fact, it's the first automatic watch I've ever owned. Invicta is Latin for invincible, and at the time I bought it as a holiday watch, a beta, and my only parameters for the purchase were find the cheapest automatic that was waterproof enough to withstand swimming and being in a water park or two. At the time, this model was on sale and Amazon were running a gift card promotion, so it came in at a whopping £35 total to purchase. I just wanted to make that clear at the start, because this model and the Pepsi colourway would not really be my first port of call if it hadn't been cost as the major decision maker. I've made it clear in the past that homages are not my thing, but actually that's not my biggest bugbear with this model. Really, there's a feature of the watch above all others that irks me, and you may well have seen it before in other reviews, but you won't see it in any of the marketing for the watch, on Amazon, the Invicta website, or anywhere else you care to shop. But the left side is engraved with a large Invicta logo. It isn't remotely subtle, feels cheap and tacky, and is a trend that I'm glad doesn't really seem to have caught on that much. I promise I will get onto the positives of this model, and there are plenty, but I want to address the other elephant in the room, and that is the public perception of Invicta as a brand. They produce a lot of different models and are known to make some of perhaps the gaudiest, most oversized and frankly ugly watches of any brand. And when I say a lot of models, just the Pro Diver range alone has over 41 pages of different options available on the Invicta website at the time this video was produced. Now, while some of these models are questionable, there are some hidden gems in there. The 1953 model, based on the classic dive releases from that year, is a particular highlight. Now, they aren't alone in utilising those retro stylings, but it is worth praising Invicta for many of the improvements they've made with that particular model. The logo has been replaced by just the brand name, the colourway is far more subtle and professional, and perhaps most importantly, that model does not feature the engraving on the side. Invicta might seem like a product of the early 2000s, but actually the origins of the brand, at least in some ways, stretch back much further. Invicta was formed in 1837 in Switzerland, much earlier than a lot of the big established horological brands that we know and love today. Now, the original company was hit hard by the quartz crisis, went bankrupt and was sold to Ondix in Switzerland. Ondix themselves folded in 1991 and the brand was acquired by American owners who still hold the brand rights today. Recent years have hit the company hard though. They've had to file for a type of bankruptcy that allows them to restructure and have had to close several of their physical stores worldwide. Back to the watch at hand. The 5053 is what I would consider to be the most basic version of the Pro Diver. It measures in at 40mm in diameter, has a thickness of 13.5mm, though some websites state it as being 12, and is constructed from stainless steel. It's a 200 meter rated diver and has a unidirectional clicky bezel to allow for that functionality. It's powered by the NH35A movement with a date complication magnified by a Cyclops. It has a mineral crystal, not sapphire, but it does have a screw down crown, a solid bracelet with a fold over safety clasp and a relatively impressive exhibition case back for the money. The design of the watch, even down to the Mercedes handset, mimic the Rolex Submariner. The most original feature is the second hand, which is capped by the company's logo. The value for money at the price point that I paid is really off the scale with the Pro Diver. It is very hard to get better specifications from any brand at this price point, especially when considering that this is an automatic watch and not a quartz. More than that, for me it has absolutely served its purpose. You can see from some of this footage that I haven't exactly been treating this watch with much care, and it hasn't let me down, isn't showing any obvious signs of wear and tear, and keeps accurate time. Certainly, I can wholeheartedly vouch for its water resistance. As I mentioned, the bracelet is solid, and the fit, for me at least, is comfortable. Not on the 5053 model, but other models in the range are available with a Jubilee bracelet, which I think would be a general preference for me, and I have seen some images of the 5053 move to a Jubilee and it does look a lot better in my opinion. There is no taper with the 3-link version, but there are points of micro adjust, so you would be quite unlucky not to get a decent fit, and you do get a good mixture of brushed and polished finishing on the bracelet. Given the specifications, the 152 gram weight with all links attached is perhaps not surprising. It feels solid and you aren't likely to forget you are wearing it. Worth taking a short moment to discuss the lume. It's there, but it hasn't really held up very well over time. Let's talk a little bit more about the movement that this model features, the NH35A. It's very commonly used in the budget sector of the watch market, and it's difficult to find automatic movements much cheaper than this outside of a few developed in China. These movements are unbranded but produced by Seiko in either Japan or Malaysia. The movement has hacking, hand winding, date functionality, and as we've discussed, is an automatic. I would say it's relatively unusual for an NH35 movement to be graced with an exhibition caseback, but I do love looking at movements, so for my part it is at least appreciated. Not only that, but there is a little, albeit entirely superficial, customization here from Invicta in terms of the rotor decal. On some models, the back of the case is engraved with things like American design, Japanese movement, and the brand's logo features the Swiss flag. It might be apparent from the price point, but this ambiguity in terms of production is actually covering up the fact that these watches are largely produced in China and the Far East. As someone who would almost always pick a mechanical movement over a digital or quartz powered equivalent given the choice, I can only reiterate how impressive the specifications are here for the cost. While Invicta are not the only brand offering watches with these specifications at these prices, AliExpress brands would really be one of the only other places to look, and you would then have to pay for shipping and import taxes depending on the country you're ordering from. As an American brand with American held stock and being available through Amazon, Invicta can often work out cheaper to purchase as Amazon ship to themselves, and that avoids you paying the import tax personally. While cheap, these watches are going to be over the required limit to get free shipping too. While the colourway might not be to my tastes, the finishing of individual elements is not bad at all given the cost of entry here. While it isn't going to set the world on fire, I've paid more for watches and got less back in terms of quality of components and the overall finish of the watch. Now, I've said the same thing in previous videos when I've been looking at 200 and 300 meter rated divers, but that does always add thickness to the model, which might be okay for some, but doesn't really appeal to me, especially as I'm never going to be diving to 200 or 300 meters with it at any point. I do often wonder what percentage of dive watches ever actually go diving. I don't think I would necessarily trust my life to the pro diver though, as the NH35A has an expected deviation between -20 and +40 seconds a day, which is a little bit disconcerting if your life is on the line. On the flip side, I wouldn't particularly want to take any of my more expensive divers out into salt water, so if you were out snorkeling or something less risky like that, this is a comparatively low risk monetarily. Now, one tip I would give you if you were interested in getting a pro diver is that the men's sizes tend to be huge. For example, the 46646 model looks quite good with its monochromatic design, but closer inspection reveals it's 47mm in diameter, which is far too large for a lot of people. However, the ladies' version of the same watch, the 46650, comes in at 38mm, so for those with regular size wrists, make sure you are checking out the ladies' models too. Even the 5053 has a lug-to-lug of 47.5mm, so it really is worth taking the time to look at the measurements for each of these watches as they vary wildly. Some of the ladies' watches also feature dials made from interesting materials like mother of pearl, and some others that at least are trying to mimic the ocean plastic style of recent Oris releases. There are some extremely garish versions too, but others that are far more restrained, especially if you're looking for more unique dial textures and designs. To conclude, while I'm not a fan of the looks of my 5053, I think there is scope for a very well spec'd watch at a very low price with decent looks if you're willing to scour through the entire Pro Diver range. Even if you're not, and you do what I did and go for the absolute cheapest you can get your hands on, you're still going to end up with a reliable automatic beater. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider dropping the video a like and subscribing if you're interested in seeing more content like this.